Hey everybody. I mean, there's no one right now, but I'm here, so that's what I'm gonna say. Just gonna paint tonight. Gonna do some, well, finish this up. The character studies of like a high school age Mary Jane Watson. I did this 10 friggin' years ago, and I've been meaning to finish him up for a whole decade now, so I'm finally getting around to it. It's kind of to have some new work because we're going to do a thing called Comic Art Live next weekend, May 30th and 31st, put together by comicartfans.com and my art dealer, Mark Hay of Splash Page Comic Art. Since we can't have real conventions at the moment, we're going to have a virtual one. And I have art that hasn't been, well, that I still have. And I haven't made a whole lot of original work in the last year. A lot of it was digital, and not just digital, but like work that took me a very long time. So it kept me from doing other original artwork. So I just don't have a whole lot. So I needed to kind of dig through what I have and see what I could possibly finish within a week. So I've already done a few things. It's actually been fairly productive. I finished up some Exo Man-O-War character studies, and I finished up Hellboy studies. I'll probably for about an hour. And now I'm on to Mary Jane Watson. So let me set up my camera and hopefully get things going. Oh, now we got some people. Come on, guys. All right. So when I did these, it was for Marvel, but it was for Marvel, their show Ultimate Spider-Man, and they just wanted me to do some like character studies for high school age Peter Parker, Mary Jane, and I think I did Doc Ock as well. Here's my Peter Parker one. I might get this done for next week as well. I might throw a Spider-Man on there just for fun too. Because I've had a lot of very nice collectors ask me over the years about this particular piece, and I never wanted to let go of it because I didn't feel like I had finished it the way I had wanted to. But I finally found the time because there's a worldwide pandemic, and I stopped doing all my professional work, and I'm just concentrating on commissions because I have a backlog going back years and years. So I just thought now's a good time to get them done. Now they sent me a lot of like inspiration, which I'm going to pull up on my computer, but I'm not going to show because I don't know what the rights are on any of it. But basically they just sent me like a PDF of a bunch of, like glamour shots. I mean, they're young kids, but they're all models, and it's just like the kind of look they wanted for the high school. Now, of course, as I was looking through it, it looked kind of like high fashion to me, but some of it looked a little more casual. So I did my own version of all of the clothing that they sent me, and this is kind of what I came up with. So usually what I would do is I'd like find a pose that I liked, but I'd put it on a different clothes on it, so I wasn't just copying it directly. And I'm going to take a sip. I'm having a nice Kentucky Mule to help me draw. That's good stuff. All right, enough talking. I'm going to start with this big central character. I'm not going to ink everybody. Like this one, I'm probably going to leave just pencils. Same for down here. Like I inked this and this and this, but these I might just leave with pencil. Although I might, she's more cartoony, so I might add some like red cheeks. But this one, she's got like on top. I don't know really how this bun works, and I can't remember where I got the reference for it, but I'm pretty sure I was looking at something because I don't think I would naturally draw a bun like that. Of course, I have a man bun at the moment. I don't know if I'm going to show you guys, but it's actually pretty convenient because I just wake up and I tie it back. I gave myself a haircut because it had been long enough. We're like past day 70 here as far as shelter in place. We are going out a little bit now, you know, where we think it's safe. Go to the beach, but if you're going to go to the beach, you got to go at like 9 a.m. Because things get pretty hairy later on. Of course, my mom sent me a video today from Daytona. It's just kind of heartbreaking. You know, because we're only right now, like, as far as the numbers go, we've made it back down to where we are in like mid-March, which is, you know, good, but we're definitely going to see some spikes. But anyway, I don't want to think about that right now. I just want to just draw. Pretend like none of this stuff is burning outside. Now for the eyes, I usually just, it's tough when I'm doing the live cam. Because usually when I'm inking, like my face is actually like right here. So when I'm recording, I try and sit back a little, but I can't, like I can see, but for the level of detail I need, I actually need to be pretty close. So I might shy away from the eyes for a little bit. Just so you guys don't have to stare at my nose. Let me see if I can pull my reference too, because I don't know. I think this was based on an actual outfit. Yeah. Okay, I see it now. I mean, I really love doing color character studies. I mean, I think everybody does because they're just fun. But this was also a nice change of pace because I don't really ever get to do straight up fashion illustration. One thing I've been noticing lately, I've been watching the 1990s X-Men cartoon with my daughter, and like I forgot how much fun the X-Men were because they're kind of, you know, some of them are older, but some of them are kids, and so like a lot of them is just like, I mean, the first episode they're like at the mall, and so you get to see them like in civilian clothes. So I feel like that X-Men, a big part of it was just like straight up fashion, and I never really appreciated that as a kid because, you know, I always wanted everybody in their costumes, but now looking back on that, there was really nice variety in a way that I don't think you got to see as much of, because, you know, you would always see people in their civilian clothes in comics, but I feel like in X-Men, so much of it was just like a fashion statement. My daughter's favorite character is Storm, by the way. Yeah, I had a lot of fun watching that. And now she knows the song and sings it, or, you know, hums it. And honestly, that song is going through my head most of the time. As I think I discussed with fellow artist and longtime friend Joe Quinones, you know, when we're walking down the street, chances are what's playing through our head is the X-Men cartoon theme song or like the Star Wars Cantina song, depending on the mood. Yeah, we've been nerds for a long time. Hmm. I usually hate drawing hands on hips, but I love it when they go back behind because you only have to draw the thumb. And I see on the sketch, I realize I only did it on this side. Now it looks, you can barely see it. I actually did draw the thumb here, and I think I just didn't like it. And I didn't do any reference for this. This was kind of like, I won't say it was drawn from my head, but I mean, a lot of it, like I was just pulling from different photos, none of which were exactly what I wanted. And so when that's the case, the first thing to suffer is usually the hands, at least for me. Just, when I draw hands, I gotta see them. You know, if I don't have a problem drawing them, you know, if they're in front of me, it's like coming up with a believable pose, I guess. Like I can draw a head out of my head without a problem, but the hands have just always given me an issue. You know, I have like my go-to, you know, I can draw a resting hand, I can draw a fist, but this one, whenever it's like a hand on the hip, I can always have the toughest time. I think what I'm going to do is I'm not going to ink all of it. I'm going to ink part of it and then let it dry. And then put some color on it because that's just always a little more dramatic. I'm going to ignore that hand because I want to attempt a natural hand on there. But for right now, I'm going to ignore it because that's kind of a drawing issue. And I can ink on camera, but I have a much more difficult time drawing on camera, especially if I'm going to talk. Like I can't draw and talk at the same time. Or I can't imagine things, put it that way. Like if I'm doing, if it's like a studio model session, which I haven't done in decades, but if I were doing like life drawing, I can talk while I do that because I'm just copying. But when I'm like essentially, you know, doing 3D models in my head, it just takes too much processing power. And my words suffer. All right, so I think I'm gonna let me see if I can do the eyes. You know, with MJ, you gotta have the green eyes. I think my light source, I'll probably, yeah, it'll be easier if I put the highlight there. All right, I'm gonna go in, so you guys are gonna have to look at my face. Apologies ahead of time. You know, because the tip of this brush is just basically a single hair. And so that alone is tough enough. But then you add to it the fact that I've already inked a significant portion of the eyes. So that means I've lost my contrast. And so if I were just doing a black line on pure white paper, it'd be one thing, I could still see it. But because I've already put a bunch of stuff there, I can't see it without getting in ridiculously close. I probably went too long on her eyelash there. Oh well. So for issues like that, I've actually been dealing with that all week because I did a Marvel Silver Age pinup that was just ink, and I had wanted to watercolor it, but I had never really planned for it. And so I had used whiteout, and when you use whiteout, it kind of ruins your chances of doing an easy coloring job. And so there are parts of it where I actually had to go back in with acrylic wash, which is just acrylic paint that dries matte, and do some really rigorous color matching. Matching opaque paint to what is watercolor transparent paint, which is not easy. It takes a long time. All right, I'm gonna let that set. I'm gonna move to a different figure, so I can let that dry and then come back at it with some color. I think I'm gonna leave her in pencil because I want her to kind of fall back in the background. This one I like. This is actually the only one I don't like, and so I might redraw that or something. Part of it's weird too because she, this is supposed to be a teenage Mary Jane Watson, and so it's really tough to do with like a cartoon. I mean, it's tough to do even if it's fully rendered, fully painted. I've always loved her hair. I mean, her hair is part of what's so iconic. Thanks to John Romita Sr. It's red, but there's a lot there. There's a lot of black in it. And it just ends up looking great. The contrast. Yeah, in fact, like I love doing hair. I don't love doing blonde hair or white hair. For ink, at least. Like painting is fine, it's all the same, but for ink, there's just, when it's a really dark shadow, there's just so much more to do. And you can actually be a little more careless. When the character has light hair, each individual stroke, it just counts more. I'm still being careful here, but it's just not the same. Yeah, so if I'm ever drawing like a blonde character, I pencil the hair much tighter than I do if this, another character has dark hair, either brown or black or deep red in MJ's case. I established the basic flow, but there's a lot that I'm still just coming up with on the fly. How's my nose? Is it getting too close? I wonder if I can actually bring it in a little closer. I'm contemplating getting a super fancy webcam mount, and by webcam I just mean my phone because that's all that I use. I mean, I've contemplated it in the past, but I just don't live stream enough where it'd be worth it. But I have been kind of shopping around lately to see if it's something I want to invest in. Let's see, I'm going to go through some of the comments. Greetings from El Salvador. Hi, thanks for watching. Hi, Jonathan. How much will your art be during Comic Art fans? I don't know. I'm going to do a post, hopefully, well, definitely this week because we're running out of time. But I believe everything has to have a set price. And I don't think we're doing any bidding or anything. But as far as prices go, I usually just let my art come up with all that because he knows the market and what people are willing to pay. So I let him make those decisions for the most part. The only time I ever really comment is if he says it's too low. And, you know, because sometimes there'll be a piece that, you know, people probably wouldn't pay that much for, but I'll like it for some other reason. You know, like roughly speaking, the way that comic art is priced, a certain character, it'll be worth more. And if it, you know, how big the character is on the page, it'll be worth more. But sometimes I'll just, for, you know, purely personal reasons, I'll just like a particular piece. And so I won't want to see it or let it go for less than a certain amount. And he'll look at it and be like, why? No, he's a good guy. We've been working together, man, since 2004, I think is when we met. Yeah, I mean, just a year out of college, basically. Although technically I had been a professional for 2 years. I got pretty lucky right off the bat. Sorry, I'm like only half looking at where I'm recording. That's the problem with, I'm holding it with my left hand and drawing with my right. Which is not ideal, but it usually gives you a better picture of what I'm doing. But yeah, that's why I'm kind of looking at some more expensive mounts for my camera. So I can just like put it there. Not have to, you know, I want to be able to adjust it with one hand and for it to stay there. And I haven't quite found anything that's just right. Like essentially what I want is just like a swing arm lamp, but I don't have a lot of desk space, so I want it to hang from above, and that's what makes it a little more difficult. All right, so I'd say the hair's about done. I guess we can do the face, even though it makes me nervous. Phew. Nerve-wracking. It's even recording it. I mean, this is just so small. You know, well, you can do it with a pen, but I prefer brush because with brush you can actually get more detail. I mean, you can get like a finer point, and the pen will absorb some of the shake of your hand. Because it's not that, you know, like I have such good control in my hand that it doesn't shake. It's just that I account for the shake, and I know where my problem areas are. There's certain angles where I can't actually do a straight line or a nice curve. But you know, I know where that's going to happen, so I know how to avoid it. And that's actually why you see a lot of artists like rotating the paper as they go. And if I weren't holding the camera in my left hand, that's what I would be doing. And for that hand, I might have to do that later. You know, the trick with the brush is you have to be pulling. All right, I think that's enough for there. I'm gonna step back because I need both hands, and I'm gonna do some watercolor. How are we doing on time? 9:17, not bad. I'm gonna go for maybe 30 more minutes. And I need a sip of my Kentucky Mule. This one's made with the Peat Monster, so it's super smoky. All right, so you know, they don't take a long time. This is the Pentel art brush. Yeah, Pentel pen brush. There's a difference. Pentel pen brush. It is waterproof once dry, but it takes, you know, a minute or two to dry. But sometimes I just like to be extra safe. They do have another one for those of you who are curious. So if you've ever seen this little set, they'll sell these three together, as you know, a black, brown, and gray. And the brushes themselves are great, but the ink inside is not waterproof. Sometimes that's what you want. So what this set is good for is like shading, sketching, that kind of stuff. So sometimes I'll use this gray to do like a gray tone on like a Moleskine sketchbook. But if you want something that's waterproof, you need this one, which I don't even remember if it's called, I don't think it's the Pentel art brush, but it looks like this. And the main thing you got to look for, it's a black cap and a gray body. And that, you know, and a bunch of Japanese that I can't read. But that is the waterproof one, which is good if you want to watercolor over your ink drawings. Yeah, some of you have asked if like Pentel has sponsored me. The answer was always no. However, Chris Kohler, who works for them, and they hired him to do a lot of the artwork for the actual like packaging and whatnot. And he sent me a whole bunch. So I don't know if that means I'm sponsored now, but you know, I've always bought these out of my own pocket because I think they're great. But now I have a whole bunch, and because they came up with a bunch of new designs. But I haven't opened them yet because they were sent to me during the pandemic. So I have a waiting period as if they're guns while I let them cool off. so to speak. Oh, and anyway, I lost my train of thought. I don't want to ink that right now. I want to paint it. So I will use, this is a brush I've been using lately. I always used to use the Winsor Newton Series 7, but they not only got, I mean, they've always been expensive, but the quality seemed to be a little inconsistent on the lower numbers. So, you know, they're numbered 1 through, I think they go up to like 12 or 18. I can't remember, but the 6s were always good, but they just kept getting more and more expensive. So this one's a Rosemary and Company. I don't remember how much I paid for it, but it was close to the same amount, but I just heard good things, so I decided to purchase it, and I love it so far. It's really kept its point. So, on the coloring. Scoot this over so maybe you guys can see. It's a Holbein watercolor palette, a watercolor or gouache. I've got both on there. I keep watercolor up here, gouache over here. The gouache I tend to use for this palette is M. Graham because it reactivates nicely. I prefer the finish on the Holbein gouache, but the Holbein, it'll get crack up if you leave it on a dry palette. So we're going to just do a really light wash of burnt sienna, just to, essentially what I'm doing is flatting, for those of you familiar with digital coloring. Just establishing all the different shapes and different colors for each shape. And it's just flat color. Now, I've seen a lot of people, well, not a lot, but some people will do all the shadows first and then leave like the body color for the end. And I do like that because it's a little dramatic. Like, it's nice to put like this last finishing step and then it's done. But for me, I like starting early, kind of getting the tone right. And you know, there's barely any pigment on there. It's mostly water. So usually when I do skin, I'll do that first pass with like burnt sienna, you know, for light skin. And then this gives me like the base, and I can move it more pink or more yellow or whatever it needs to be. But then while it's still a little damp, I'll go in and do the really subtle colors. So mainly that's cheeks. So I'll just put down some water ahead of time, and this is how I do the wet into wet. Just putting water down in the cheeks, making sure it's all damp. Doesn't really affect the color at all. But then I'll take some of my red. In this case, I think it's vermilion hue, because I took all the toxic pigments off my palette, so I don't have to worry about any of that. Because I used to have cadmium and whatnot, and for me, there's just no reason to have it in there. Like, once it's done, I can't really tell the difference. You know, I used to be heavy into that stuff when I was like oil painting back in the early 2000s, you know, lead white and all that, but now I just don't care. So I don't even know if you guys can see that. Like, the subtlety is, I mean, it's just barely there. But it's just kind of like, you know, the red zones of the face, cheeks and nose, and that's it. You know, there's always some pooling that happens. So I'll just go back and get some water. Just make sure everything blends out. You know, at this point, I don't really want to a hard line between those colors. Then I'll go ahead and do the lips. Use some, I don't know if it's like primary red. Let me see what it's called. It's called permanent red. It's just like a nice, perfect red. That's also transparent, because they like if you use cadmium red, it's actually pretty opaque even with watercolor, and so that's another reason I took it off my palette. Because most of the time, if I'm watercoloring, it's usually over ink. If I were doing straight up watercolor, then I might think about it. But using some permanent red and a little bit more burnt sienna, I'll just hit the lips. And I don't really want her to look like she's wearing lipstick. I just want her to distinguish them. So kind of pink. And then I'm gonna throw some green in there. Sap green is a good dark green, but then actually I like using this, I think, is it cobalt turquoise? Yeah, it might be cobalt green, which is probably toxic now that I think about it. But it's something I very rarely use. Basically just for green eyes. Okay. And then with MJ's hair, I usually, the first pass is with burnt sienna. And when I watercolor, I don't do that much mixing. I usually do like a first pass, and then a second, and then a third. And that's kind of how I approach the color that I want. The only exception with that is, of course, skin tones. You'll see when I get to doing shadows on her, I really spend a lot more time mixing on the palette before the brush ever touches the paper. By the way, speaking of paper, this is what I use for almost everything. It's Strathmore 500 series 2-ply semi-smooth. My dad and I get it in 11 by 17 sheets. And I've been using this for years. It's 100% cotton. It's just like the big sheets that they sell. But the semi-smooth is, I think, only available on the 11 by 17 size. Because if you get the big sheets, they tend to be either hot press or vellum. Hot press is super smooth. But if those are my two choices, then I usually go for vellum. But semi-smooth is right in between, and it's perfect for comic book art, either penciling, inking, or watercolor. Now, if you're going to do a lot of watercolor, like a large area, then you might have to tape it down. But since I'm just doing like these little teeny tiny, this is an inch, under an inch, there's not much you have to do. Buckling, but it'll go back. And also, I'm not using very much water. That's the other key thing. I keep my watercolor pretty dry. But you guys probably do that. The second pass for her is alizarin crimson, which is really, you gotta have that on your palette. It's just key. It's kind of like a wine red. It's a little bit more pink. So you end up using a lot in skin tones, especially shadows, that kind of stuff. And most of the good stuff is called permanent alizarin crimson because the pigment that they originally used was not very light fast. So most of the time nowadays, if you see alizarin crimson, it's permanent alizarin crimson. I don't know what the actual pigment was, if alizarin, like where that name comes from. I should, but oh So MJ's hair I usually do in 3 shades. First one is burnt sienna. It's a nice, warm undertone. And that's usually what I let show through on the highlights. And then I cover that with alizarin crimson. And then the final one is, I think it's Van Dyke Brown. Let me just give me my spritzer. Because these are actually all dried out. And Van Dyke Brown is, I don't like it as a, I like it as a color, but I do not like it as a paint. Because it's tough to activate. And so I always have to spritz it and really work it on the palette before it's ready to go. And this I just use to really darken, to ease the transition between the ink, the black, and then the alizarin. So this is to kind of model the form. I don't even know if this will show up, but it makes it look better in person. And that's kind of what this is all about. Like, I'm making an original piece of art so that someone will buy it. Because that, it's about half of my income. Some years it's like more than half, which is I actually don't like. Because it's great. I'm always happy that people are supporting me, but it also means that I'm not creating like new content. If you know what I mean. Like I've never really wanted to be a gallery artist, but I've always been super thankful that people have wanted to purchase my originals. So, like, it's an essential part of my career, but I never wanted it to be like the only part. All right, so that's pretty much ready to go. Probably want to put a little Payne's Gray. Payne's Gray just in the white of the eye, sclera. Again, it's probably not showing up in the video, but it makes a difference to me. All right, once that's done, now I can think about shadows. And then once I'm happy with that, then I'll get some burnt sienna to kind of cut that color. And so this is when I do the most mixing. And this is actually also when I start to use like my tester. So this is just magnet, boom. So I can get a sense of what that shadow is gonna look like, because I do not want to be surprised. Now, all of these so far, I'm kind of sticking to pretty simple lighting setup. I'm gonna have this way, and yeah, that's about it. And I already did it. I already once did it down here. I rendered it more. I knew I wasn't gonna ink it, and it's weird. I don't like it because I was using this head for reference, and of course, when you use a plastic head for reference, the final product ends up looking like plastic. So I actually had to go back and wash over it to make it look a little less glaring. But that aside, it is helpful for knowing where some shadows are. So darken that a little bit. You'll get a little bit of a cast shadow from the hair. I've never actually seen this haircut work in real life, but that's okay. So you got a little shadow under the nose. And then a little bit on the cheek. And I'm going to a separate brush with just water to soften that edge. Because I like, in this brush I have loaded my shadow color, and I don't want to lose it because I don't want to have to do it again. So I'll use a different brush to kind of go in and just soften that line. And I think I'm just going to wet this whole area so that everything's soft. You know, it's pretty subtle, but that's what I want. Then I'll do the neck. Grab a little more shadow color. A little bit of an indication of the neck muscle, or the tendon, the sternocleidomastoid, whatever it is. Okay. And in the reference they sent, it's kind of, it looks like a white shirt, but I'm thinking I might make it like, I don't know, what do you guys think? Just make it pink, blue. Definitely want it to be light. I haven't looked at comments in a while. I'll take a quick break and look through the comments. What have I got? Do I have a favorite Mary Jane artist? Oh, definitely Ramita Senior. Yeah, no doubt. Same goes for Gwen Stacy, honestly. I really like your Spidey and Mary Jane with the blue negative fill. Thank you. Thank you. That was a cover. ASM 641. Control with that brush is crazy. Any exercises you do to get better with that? Not really. I just ink. You know, like I know that there are things you can do. You know, here I'll show you what. Oops, lost my magnet. Ah. There we go. Okay, let me get a scrap piece of paper. So, like I don't do these exercises, but I'll show you like what you need to master. So, you know, this is my dad calls it the rat tail stroke. Thick to thin. Thick to thin. So you go in to get it wider, and you go out to get it thinner. So you do that. And what you'll notice is the faster you go, the more texture you'll pick up. So if you go real quick, I mean, that's just dry brush. And it's not that my brush is dry, it's just that I did it very quickly. This paper is also, this is a vellum finish, so you're going to pick up a lot more texture than the semi-smooth. But, you know, same rules still apply. So if you go real slow, you know, you're going to get a much sharper line. So, like I said, thick to thin. And if you don't want to start with a point, what you do is you kind of come in at a more direct angle and you first kind of establish yourself and then start. So yeah, that's kind of a bad example, but I'll do it. You know, because you don't always want every line to look like this, you know, this kind of feathering. Sometimes you just want a straight line like that. And so the next thing, like I think what most people think of with the brush is like the most difficult is just, you know, straight, even lines. And the way to do that is just, you have to have a steady surface, and you have to be able to kind of lock your hand. So, I rest my hand here, and I'm sort of locking the altitude. Like, my hand isn't moving much in terms of depth. It just kind of locks there, and then I use my entire arm to do that. And then everything after that is just, it just takes practice. I know for a while there, I saw some people online. I can't remember who it was. I want to say maybe it was Robbie Trevino. I can't remember, but he was doing the straight line challenge, and it's hard. So what you do is you do a straight line, and then you do a parallel straight line. And then what he did is he went through and he split the difference. And I can do it, but he did it and it was just perfect. But I have to say, and I'm sorry if I'm conflating who it was. I think it was him, but I'm not sure. He had whoever it was, had a very weird, bizarre way, for me at least, of holding his pen. So I don't even remember how it was. It just looked so weird. But obviously it did not prevent him from doing what he wanted. So yeah, if you can do an unwavering line like that, then you're on the right track. Let me see what else we got. Okay. What kind of marker brush? This is the Pentel brush pen. God, I did it again. The Pentel pen brush. This is their problem. This is why no one can tell what they're doing, because even someone who knows exactly what he wants still messes it up. Thank you, Killer Tacos. Will I open up my commission list anytime this year? Probably not. Just goes too far back. But the good news is I have been making progress. I had some that were due from New York Comic Con 2017. I'm almost through all of those. But then I still have ones from a decade ago that I got to get through. We will take on a couple new ones for Comic Art Live, but I don't yet know the details about how he's going to run that. So I will post that to my blog and social media this week. Yellow shirt, blue shirt, light blue would be nice. This was for the USM TV show. Yep, this was for Ultimate Spider-Man. What kind of inking pen? Pentel. Brush pen. Animated series with my style. That'd be fun. Yeah, boils down to practice and hard work. Yeah, I'm afraid that's the answer to just about everything. So, but the good news is it's a fun job. Been doing this for almost 20 years now. So, and there's still things that I'm really excited to do, things that I haven't got to do yet. I've gotten to do most. Still stories that I'm itching to do. And that's not even, mentioning my own stuff that is languishing by the wayside, but that's still a ways off. Oh, how am I keeping that palette on the board? Magnets. I use so many magnets. Yeah, so they're just these ones. Just one up here and one right there. And I can slide it around. My kneaded eraser is magnetic. My pencil is magnetic. This little thing is magnetic. Yeah, of course now it's not working. Oh well. I've thought about putting magnets on my brushes, but I have a brush holder for that. So. For the time being, no magnets on those. doing this does make me want to do like a fashion illustration, or like a straight up Mary Jane comic book. Let's see. Should we do the shirt? I saw a vote for yellow. I saw one for light blue. I'm kind of thinking light blue, mainly because I haven't done a light blue yet. I'm imagining in my mind. Could do. Yeah, I want like an Oxford blue shirt, I think. So I'll get some of this blue. I don't even know what it is. I think it's Compose. It's either Compose blue or Peacock blue, which are, I don't know, they're both kind of the same. I think the main pigment is phthalocyanine, so, you know, any kind of phthalo blue is fine. Usually you need two blues. You need a phthalo blue and an ultramarine. One that's, you know, tends toward green and one that tends towards purple. All right, what are we gonna look like here? Yeah, so I'm just gonna do the whole shirt, you know, like a light blue. And then I'll go back and do all the shadows. So I think I'll do like a light, this is kind of the fun of it. I mean, this is like the fashion illustration portion of it. Like I get to design the look and the color scheme. And so I'll do a light blue shirt and maybe a navy hot pants, Daisy Dukes, whatever the kids are calling them these days. Yeah, I felt like it needed this particular blue in the middle of the composition. And then really dark pants. That's the other funny thing. Like I have the ability for good style. I just don't exhibit it on myself. Like I know how to look good. When it comes to dressing myself, I do not have the energy or the desire. I'm also inside even when there's not a pandemic, so it just doesn't matter. Every once in a while I'll dress up. And I love this cell shading look, like just two-tone. It's just so classic and just so effective. I've been really itching to do like an animated piece lately. And I did recently, but it like just made me want to do it more. I did like a Batman the Animated Series cover, or like, you know, the comic version of Batman the Animated Series. And I don't know when that'll be out, but I just finished. It was a whole lot of fun because I really, it's the first time I really concentrated on getting that look down, and it's so subtle, and I had never studied it. I had never figured out like what made it look like that, and I actually found a YouTube video that really helped kind of figure it out for me. I think I found it by looking up like YouTube cell shading or cell shading in Photoshop, that kind of thing. And really what I do was actually a blur. So I knew how to put texture onto things, but what the guy was actually doing was obliterating that texture by putting a slight blur, Gaussian blur on everything, both on the lines as well as the fill color. And then I put a slight blur. Basically, I did it all separately on every single layer, but it ended up just being the whole thing was blurred. And I was kind of shocked how much more I liked it when the blur was put on. And that's one thing I wish Photoshop had. I wish that you could do a blur layer, like an adjustment layer that was non-destructive. And you can do it with smart objects. There's a way. but it's not the same like if you're painting. Like you don't want to be working in a smart object. It's just, it's not as fun. I could talk all day about Photoshop, but I won't. All right, I think that's good. All right, maybe I'll throw some color on her. What time is it? Oh, it's getting late. Like I'm gonna keep working, but I'd only wanted to drone on for about an hour. So I'll work until 10 for the next 9 minutes, 8 minutes. And then it's time for another Kentucky Mule. Oh, I know. I'll show you guys what else I got done this week. Take a little break from painting. And any last questions, let me know. Let me see. I'll scroll through here. Thank you, Leonardo. Yeah, when I draw MJ, like I want her to be stunningly gorgeous, but I'd never make a point not to make her just like she's gonna be an object of male gaze no matter what. So that's not something that I need to add into the drawing because it's already going to be there if I do my job correctly. I'll put it that way. Does that make sense? Magnets are cool. So your table is metal, yeah. It's just a sheet metal that I had custom cut. And the funny story from that was early on, I ordered a custom cut piece, and I guess I had ordered annealed metal. And for those of you who don't know what annealed means, because I guess I didn't at the time, it's they heat it up so that it is non-magnetic. And so, you know, when you heat it up, then all of the molecules can align any which way. And so it's no longer magnetic. So I got it. I opened it up. I was really excited. And I put my first magnet on it, and it went. And then I ordered this one. I love the way you draw the eyes. Any tips to drawing them? No, I don't know. You just got to draw people. It's just, there's no other way. Yeah, everybody has like their certain way. One of the things I try to do is actually look at a lot of different people so that you're not always drawing the eyes the same way. But with Mary Jane, you know, I give her my standard, you know, beautiful eyes, whatever. That's, you know, this is the way I draw most like cartoon women's eyes. Yeah. No, this is not gouache. It is, I do have gouache on the palette, but this is all watercolor so far. I'll only use gouache on this if I need to do a highlight or if I make a mistake. And in that case, I'd probably use acrylic gouache. Acrylic gouache has a lot more covering power because it dries. And whereas gouache, it can dry, but then if you add water on top of it, it will reactivate. Will you be penciling any comics long term? Not at the moment. I did finish an 8-page Vision story, which I turned in just before this pandemic hit. And I just found out it will be out in July. So I'll be sure and tell everybody when it's finally out. It's an 8-pager that I actually wrote, and it's for Alex Ross's anthology. So, like, I've been turning down a lot of sequential jobs just because I was just too busy with just life. And but it was only 8 pages, and I had to say yes. And it's still, God, it took me months, but it's fully painted, so there's that. And I had intended to paint it in gouache, but I ended up having to do it digitally because everything was taking too long, and it still took a long time. So yeah, let me show you what else I got this week. So this is some of the new artwork that will be available at Comic Art Live. This stuff was done for the Folio Society. It's all inked by my dad, and man, it was a lot of fun because it was just it's Marvel Silver Age. And you just got to basically copy all my favorite stuff, and I basically had free reign. Like, you know, like they had already selected. Those are the pencils. When I work, I pencil. You see the blue under there that's the digital sketch. I pencil this and then scan it and send blue line to my dad, who inks on top of that. So you can see. But you know, it was just they picked all the best stuff from the Silver Age, which is like that's the best age for Marvel. It's just awesome. This one I think is already sold, so it was fun. But as you can see, I inked this one myself, and so I did the sewer cover, manhole cover pattern in gray, so that it was. That was a cover. This was done in gouache. This was for my cover face paint. It was like a book of sketches or like pinups I did a couple years ago. I might put up this for sale. I don't know if anyone will buy it, but it was just kind of like make up a random sci-fi story of some sort. And this is what I hope to finish. This is the Peter Parker stuff, which I showed you guys. This is Vision sketch from when I was beginning my story. And then I might have time to finish this. This is General Ursus from Planet of the Apes. Finish that. And then this is the stuff I finished so far. My Exo Man of War designs. That was never used, but man, it was fun to do, especially these little guys. You know, they're just like an inch high, maybe an inch and a quarter. Just real quick, just trying to get, well, they're not real. I mean, there's a lot of detail in each one, but making them so small just forces you not to agonize over the details. And this was the doozy. This was also for Folio Society. I inked this one, so I still had it in my possession, and I decided to color it in watercolor. I posted some of the work, but here's where you can see, so I did a lot of like white out here, so I had to go back in with acrylic wash and match that color. That's real tough. Same here, you can kind of see it if you get the light at an angle. So there's a blue ring around the 4, or around the circle around the 4, where that's watercolor meeting acrylic wash, and you know that takes patience. You know, they're just like little bits, even on Cap and Spidey. But that's that. And then the last piece that I finished was Hellboy, all done. Yeah, this is a piece I did in 2015, but I had to start drawing the actual comic, so I never got a chance to finish it. So it's done now, and it'll be for sale. Comic Art Live, Saturday and Sunday. And my panel will be on Sunday, which I'll post more info about that anyway. All right, so that's it. Guys, thank you so much for watching me paint. Glad you guys were here. I hope you guys stay safe. And I hope to see you again, either in another live stream or at Comic Art Live, which you can visit this Saturday and Sunday, May 30th, 31st, at comicartfans.com. Thanks so much, guys. I appreciate it. Have a good night. And like I said, please stay safe.